I'm here with Miss Hillary Raimo. We're here to speak on her work in the exhibition, The Space Between. It's being hosted by the New York City Women's Caucus for the Arts at the Alfa Art Gallery. Is there anything you want to start off with to introduce yourself?
Well, where do I start? I have been pursuing art professionally in the last 5 years, and I have relatively been self-taught. I've worked with some great teachers along the way. However, it's kind of a beautiful story, actually, how I got into it. I was doing a lot of spiritual work in my life and traveling a lot, and I was taking images for my travels, and somebody said to me, well, you should show some of these. These are pretty good. And I said, you think so? And I was really nervous. And I got into my first show. And since then, I've done tons and tons of shows and exhibits across the board. And here I am talking to you. And I think this show that is particularly really special. And I'm really proud to be a part of it.
Definitely. Yeah, we all feel the same way. So we're happy you're here. So you use photography a lot in your work. Like, what inspired you to kind of choose that medium?
Well, it was the easiest medium I had to travel with, and I had a camera with me at all times. So I was, in a sense, documenting some projects that I was working on as I was traveling, and I was going to places like the pyramids in Giza, Stonehenge in England. I was doing a pyramid tour in Mexico. So of course you have your camera, right? And I was documenting some of the images and the writings on the walls and some of the particular characteristics that I was finding along the way. And it just happened to be that way. I had thousands and thousands of images from different places I had gone to. So I started out as a landscape photographer, really, and moved into more of an abstract. And the abstract part of it came after studying with the Adirondack Photography Institute for multiple years, going up to the high peaks in the Adirondack Mountains and getting all the typical shots that everybody else would get. So I needed to really figure out a way to separate my work from everybody else's work as we were standing there all taking the same picture. So I started to go in and do macros and get really close up to certain things. And I became rather obsessed with texture and color and the way an image could create itself out of something so simple and not be identified so easily, and make people really kind of lean into the photograph to take a look and see what it is. And that's how it started.
Do you ever work in any other medium, or are you focused mainly on photography?
Well, it started in photography, and then I started to take some painting. I wanted to learn how to paint my photographs. So I started in landscape painting. I studied with a master oilist for several years, one-on-one, and she moved me into taking the photograph into an oil painting. I've studied with watercolor teachers, and I've studied with multi-medium artists as well. And then I became the president of a local art association here where I live in upstate New York. And so then I became really familiar with other mediums as well, as we booked presenters and speakers and demonstrations. So I had a sort of a quick education in the years that I was president for that organization as well. So I moved into different mediums, and my favorite still is photography, believe it or not.
Well, yeah. So you kind of touched on this before about your travels, and like it's focused a lot on like kind of ancient places. I've noticed like your work kind of centers around like old religions, old cultures. Is there like any culture or like place in particular that's kind of like your favorite to like work with or learn about?
Well, for the most part, during those years, I was drawn to the Middle East. I was drawn to Europe, some of the old places in Europe. And most recently, for the pandemic, I've been studying Eastern Zen artwork, working with a sensei every week. And during the pandemic, we started in April. Now we're going through October.
I know, it's hard to believe.
Yeah, I know. I can't believe it's been this long. But every week we would get together by Zoom, and she would lead us through a Buddhist teaching, and we would create some sort of artwork. And they've created some beautiful compilations of artwork from about 60, 70 people every week joining us from all over the world. And so I've been studying the Eastern religion, the Eastern philosophies. And this summer I took a class at Harvard on the Chinese historical, philosophical, stuff. And so it gave me a really great foundational background to studying the art. So it's all kind of clicking together. And this was all quite by accident. I didn't seek out learning all of this stuff. So the pandemic brought it to my doorstep.
Well, it's good that it at least brought out one good thing, right? It is bringing people.
Got to find the silver lining somewhere.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So how do you choose like the subjects for your paintings or your photography or anything that you're working with? Is there like a process there?
Yeah, there is a process. So I choose paintings based on my photographs. So if I really like something, I'll paint it. I used to practice plein air and going out and, in nature and trying to do it. And that's always fun, but mostly I use my own photographs. I don't use other people's photographs, and I take that. And so the abstract pieces, I take, it's more like a curiosity. You look at a photograph and you see little parts of it that if you look a little closer, you're drawn in a little closer, you find some real pretty element or fascinating or intriguing element of the piece. So I started kind of finding that sort of spontaneously, but then I started to go out and actually look for the abstract pieces more specifically. So instead of doing landscape, I would actually go out looking for light, color, and texture. And those are my three things that kind of have to click for me, and I get the goosebumps and the aha moment, and I go, oh yeah, that's it, as we all do, I think. And so I'll zone in, I'll kind of zoom in and find whatever it is there that's captured my attention. I pay attention when my attention is captured.
Right. So you just kind of get out there and wait for the inspiration to come to you.
Walk through and wait for it to go, oh.
Yeah. And I think a lot of artists can kind of relate to that. Sometimes you don't know what you're looking for until you find it, right? Yeah. Yes. No, I love that.
I don't do too much planning. I like to keep it spontaneous. I think planning is appropriate in some circumstances. You have equipment, you have to plan, certain things, weather, that kind of stuff. But I like to just kind of pick a spot, go and stay open and as open as I can to finding what's
and
there.
See what happens. Yeah, no, I like that. It really keeps things kind of open, for whatever happens. So speaking of other artists, processes, are there other artists like contemporary or otherwise that you like to kind of get inspiration from?
Well, recently I was at the Helma F. Clint exhibit down in Hudson. I don't know if you have heard of that, but she was she's from the early, the mid 1800s, and she was doing kind of channeled artwork. She would hone. She was a psychic. She was really quite an amazing woman for the time, and her work is from Switzerland, and it was on loan here in Hudson, New York, from the Guggenheim. She was here actually being shown at the Guggenheim in New York, and so there was a gallery that had some of her stuff come up to Hudson, and my uncle's a prolific painter, so we really have fun going to these places. So we went to Light Forms Art Center in Hudson, New York. We happened to catch the very last weekend of the show, and my sensei was doing a whole lesson one week on her work. And I said, well, I could take that. Let's go for a drive. So we went down to see it, and it was really something spectacular because she would paint what she perceived as the spirit or energy of a flower or a plant, and it would be almost like a guidebook of sorts, where she would have, let's say for example, rose, and she would have painted or depicted what she thought was the very essence of a rose. So it wasn't the image of a rose, but it was her interpretation of rose. And then she would have some notes and stuff. So her journals were on display as well. So she's my latest inspiration. Yeah. And I have really found a lot of muse in her work.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think especially for an exhibition like this, it's kind of centered on women. I think women getting inspiration from other women is really important for a work, like this. So that works out well. Let me see, what else do we want to talk about? So do you think, is there anything specifically unique about your voice as an artist?
specific and special to my voice, I guess I just focus on being me. So it's authentic. I really go for being as authentic as I can in my own work and trying to be original in that too. So I find muse and inspiration in other people's work. But at the end of the day, when I'm sitting down to create, I really want whatever's coming through me to just come through me and just trust that process. So I guess what makes me different, well, there's only one Hillary Raimo. I don't know how else to say.
No, that's just a good, simple way to put it. That's very true. Yeah, I like that.
I think women have their own uniqueness, and I really love this show because it focuses on women's voices and their place and identity. And the piece that I submitted into this, which was gratefully selected to be in the show. When I was down in Tennessee, I was visiting Ruby Falls, which is the largest underground waterfall in the North America that's open to the public to go in. And it was bathed in light. They would have a light kind of switching. And so I caught it in the purple light.
Yeah.
And it was really just the most beautiful, incredible, huge, beautiful waterfall. And when I look back at the photograph later on, I realized that the way the water had been photographed, it looked like this wild old woman. And I said, whoa, that's really cool. That's why I titled it Apparition, because for me, it felt like this apparition of woman. And so it felt very appropriate for this show because, you know, as women age and as we grow older in our Western culture and society, sometimes there's a complicated placement of her value and where she belongs in our cultural context.
Right.
So it's something that I have always been aware of, even as a younger woman. You know, we go through these stages, maiden, mother, crone kind of thing, and we have to remember the value of our elders, and we can't leave them like apparitions and forget their names and pretend like they don't have value. They have so much life experience that's so worthy of being understood and heard.
No, that's lovely. Yeah, and that also kind of answers my next question about like your role as an artist in society. So you kind of touched on that, how it like you reflect, you know, kind of women's role in society and how you kind of feel like a part of that. Is there like anything else that you, I don't know, feel like your role is as an artist in society, or you focus mostly on like your own identity?
Well, as a role, I think art itself holds a very special place because it allows the observer to go into somebody else's space, you know, the creator, and try to relate and understand. So it acts as a bridge really to bring cultures together, bring people together. So my role as an artist, you know, having spent most of my life working in different areas and pursuing a lot of spiritual connection to things, for me, my artwork is really where you find me. Mm-hmm. It's like I used to write. I've written 3 books. I've written articles over time, and I've worked in a lot of different areas of that sort, and I've done radio for a long time too. So for a long time, you could find me, my work, in what I was putting out in the world, and you can still do that in my artwork. But I think the bigger picture of artwork really is to transcend the logical, egotistical mind that most of us walk around in every day, and we're kind of in the routine, and we're go, do. And it's one of these things where a piece of artwork can stop you in your tracks and take all that away instantaneously and captivate you and capture your spirit and in a moment of reflection and observation, and can really pull you in and switch perhaps something or change your thought or perspective on something. And I think artists have a gift. It's almost a shamanic gift of being able to shift and move and transform and transmute energy into whatever medium that they're using and putting out. And what are they putting it out for? Well, they're putting it out for observers. They're putting it out for people to participate in the creation by being that important key. And in science and in physics, you have this wonderful concept that something really doesn't exist until it's been observed. And that's kind of an interesting thing. And it's a fun thing to say, well, my work exists because you, the observer, have observed it. And taking a moment to appreciate it is something that creates that role for the people producing the work and putting it out there.
Yeah. No, the viewer has always been a very important part of the artistic process. Always. Yeah. I mean, because it's true. It's what's kind of makes an artwork art until somebody views it and has a reaction to it. That's always been a big question.
Yeah, I think it's an equation. You can't have one without the other, right? Exactly. I mean, you can make a piece of artwork and put it on your wall and never show anybody, and it might still be great and beautiful and inspire you. It could just be a personal thing. But for those that are out there showing and exhibiting and making collections and putting things out there, I think you wouldn't be doing that unless the observers were appreciating that.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So that's kind of almost all the questions that I had. Have you looked at the other pieces in the exhibition? Is there any that like spoke to you that maybe you have a favorite?
I sure did. In fact, I really appreciated the 3D virtual room that you guys created.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. It felt like we were, and how we could click on, I was showing everybody in my house, like, look, you click on this and you're right there and you can go around the room. It was really fantastic. I think in this day and age of what we're dealing with and creating virtual shows, I had to create one in the spring, and I know the difficulty of what that involves. You have to really have some good people to put together some things for you. But anyway, I did see some fantastic pieces of work in there. I was so proud to be a part of this. I was looking around and I said, what a great energy, what a beautiful, you even in the virtual experience, you can go into the room and look around at every piece. And I don't have a favorite. I can't pick. It's all so great. But to be able to still feel the kind of energy that you might feel if you actually were at the gallery to look at the pieces in physical was really well done. So I appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
No, well, we appreciate you being a part of it. Yeah, it's important to kind of be able to adapt now that things are so different and still have that reaction, right? You still kind of, even through like a screen, through your computer, you can still definitely have a reaction to any kind of art piece, which I love. I think it almost even makes it more accessible to people.
You have to make it accessible, because if you're, how is the art world going to survive if we can't go to physical galleries and look at things? We have to adapt, and some people are doing it better than others, and everybody's trying, and I think it's beautiful, and I think it might actually even open up your audienceship to even bigger collectors and buyers. And so you have, what you're showing here in New Jersey might be seen by someone in, France or China, and they might say, hey, I want to buy that. So it's great.
No, I think it's great. We're kind of, I mean, who knows if I'd even be speaking with you, like, not in person, but, if Zoom wasn't a thing and everybody wasn't so used to it, who knows how different things could be by now. So either way, I'm very grateful to have been able to speak with you today. You're lovely. You have, lovely work, and we're very excited for you to be a part of it. All right.
Well, thank you very much for having me. This has been a pleasure, and I'm really, like I said, I'm very honored. This is a great show, and everybody should go see it and share it everywhere.
Well, we're trying. We're hoping to open the gallery for in-person visits very soon, but until now, you can view it online. So thank you again for speaking with me, and we hope to see you in person soon.
Thank you.